Okay, so here's my analysis of one of the graphs. So this is the website that has some interactive graphs that give us a bit of an insight into obesity in Australia. So I'm going to go down to one of the more complicated graphs, this one here. So whenever we're analysing a graph, we need to look at the title because that tells us what the graph's all about. We need to look at the y-axis and the x-axis. So here, this is showing us what proportion of adults are obese in this age group by birth cohorts, that is, people born within particular periods of time. And then down here we've got the percentage. So this one here says that so if we line that up with, so that colour code there lines up with this colour here. So that shows adults born between 1950 and 1953. So when people born in that period of time, when they were aged between 42 and 45, just under 20% of them were obese. But as they got older, then the proportion of them who were obese got much, much higher. And so the proportion of those people born between 1950 and 1953, when they're 62 and 65 years of age, that's the x-axis here, it's kind of just below 40%, maybe 36 or 37%. And that's a big jump from when they were aged 42. So with these graphs, I can kind of play around with them. So what I can do here is I can unselect all, so we don't have any of them, and I can just look at some cohorts. So I might look at the cohort in which I was born. So I was born in 1971. Okay, so this is people around my age. Yep. So I was born 1971, so this is people born 1970 to 1973. So let's have a look at the trend there. So when people my age were aged 22 to 25, just about 13% of us were obese. But then as we move past our 20s, get into our 30s and our late 30s and mid 40s, that proportion changes. In fact, it more than doubles. So what can I learn from this graph? Well, maybe people in my age group, they were being a lot more active in their 20s. Maybe they were playing competitive sport. But when they're around this age, they might be having children. They might have increased work commitments, and they might not be able to devote as much time to physical activity. And so the rate of obesity kind of jumps really up a lot. So for me, that's really interesting and tells us a bit of a picture. Now, what I might try and do is see how that changes between genders. So I've put in there females, and if I switch it to males, wow. So this is really interesting. For males, those rates jump really highly and they peak at around 30%, but then as they hit their 40s, the proportion of people who are obese drops off. Okay, so it goes from, when I hover it there, it gives me the exact figure, 29.9%, and it drops by about 2%. So maybe what's happening is they get to their 40s and maybe they get some medical advice and the doctor says, look, you're reducing your life expectancy, and maybe some people are starting to do something about it. So that's my analysis of this graph.